Ladies and gentlemen,
everybody wants the prize, but nobody wants to pay the price.
Can they be pushed? Do they have a sense of urgency? Do they want to be great?
And then, of course, you look at them and be like, yeah, right.
Everybody wants to be on your team when you're on top.
I saw the angel in the marble and I carved until I set him free.
Go be somebody, bro.
But the most important part of the Be Somebody journey is the resilience.
Welcome to the Be Somebody Podcast, your real and raw destination for all things entrepreneurship, leadership, and culture. One of the top-rated business podcasts in the world. Now give it up for your host, Be Somebody Inc. and BSB Group International founder and CEO, Kash Shaikh.
Welcome to part 2 of the Justin Wilkenfeld special. We had so much amazing content, such an amazing conversation that we had to split it up into 2 episodes.
A first for the Be Somebody Podcast. It's like Christmas in July.
It is. It was such an amazing first part of the conversation. We're going to pick it up back today and just dive right in. So Justin, let's go. I just want to talk to you, Justin, about how the culture at GoPro evolved in good ways and also in bad ways. You know, pros and cons when the company went public. Because when I left, it was a few months before. The culture was still super strong. It was all about the community. It was about passion. It was about love. It was about belief. And then right as I left, you all started to bring on outside folks that were more financial, experts in things, business leaders, but not really understanding the ethos and core and DNA of the brand. And I would love to hear your learnings from that transition from growth to IPO to where the culture ended up today.
Sure. Yeah, that's a juicy one. But no, I mean, culture is interesting for GoPro because I think that, the IPO it's like a crossroads for the culture of GoPro. And I think it started before the IPO. But, you had this great family, like the GoPro family, right? Like that's like a thing. Like if you look up like hashtag GoPro family, it's a full community. There's like a Facebook group and it's like robust. Like it's like all these former GoPro employees that like are part of this GoPro family. It's super cool. And it's a testament to the power of like that internal culture and community. And it's still there. I mean, it's evolved and how it evolved, I think, was that for many, many years, certainly when I started and as a lot of people came on board, we were excited about the financial opportunity, but it was not a driving force for the majority of us, I don't believe. Like, I think we truly drank the Kool-Aid and believed in building this awesome community and like delivering like amazing high quality products that helped you capture and share your amazing experiences, whatever those experiences may be. And there was a purity and almost like an innocence because we didn't know anything beyond what we were doing, right? Like a lot of us had no prior experience in this particular space, right? The camera space, the content space, like we were not versed in it. And I like to say it's like, I didn't have a box to think outside of.
Right.
Like I didn't, you know what I mean? Like it was everything was fair game for me for marketing. Cause I'm like, I don't know any better. So I'm just going to try stuff. So it was like, that was awesome. And that was part of the culture. Right. So we got to test and experiment and like go to, like, I remember showing up at places and they're like, all right, so how do we set up these cameras? I'm like, I have no idea, but we're going to try, cause I got plenty to burn. So just go for it. And that was the energy and the attitude was like this go for it attitude. So, go big, like, or go home, like, think it, see it, do it. And even to the point we had that subtly on our packaging at one point, but yeah, I mean, we were driven to grow the brand. We were driven to sell as many cameras and get as much content out there, as possible. And so it's like, when I think about that, like, and then where we headed to, I think there was a shift in the why. And I think that there was like the why for so many of us was about all the things I just described, but then we started to, drive towards the IPO. And then unfortunately we lost Kurt Amundsen, just a little bit before. He was our CFO, and we lost him, just a little bit before the IPO. And, I don't know how much of an effect that had per se, but you started to get new executives coming in. And I think they did a great job at like taking us public and, helping to professionalize certain aspects of our business, guys coming in from like Microsoft backgrounds or, Hulu, like, or CBS
Skype.
or, things like that, right? Skype, right? So it's like people with like crazy resumes, which is, shows the strength of the brand. Like we were attracting like awesome talent. But I think one of the missing links in there was building, and like who had built something versus who had sort of like stepped into something. And then furthermore, I think there's like just fitting the culture. So you went through a whole process of trying to fit the culture, right? And you came out like a different person, and you definitely spent some time to try to figure it out.
Right.
I think as we shifted, we saw like people coming in for a different reason. And it's not like they didn't, it's almost probably similar to the way you came in, right? Where you saw from the outside looking in this awesome brand that looked pretty polished.
I can make some money here.
And you can make some money here, right? You see the dollar signs and like, yeah, I want to help it, but like, I'm going to make it big. Like that's sort of this whole Silicon Valley mentality, right? And it's like the get rich quick idea. And it's like GoPro, the overnight success that Nick started working on in 2002. We went public in 2014.
Right.
It was 12 years.
Right.
Like that is not overnight. Like that was a lot of hard work and dedication and just sticking with it to get to that point. And so when we had new people coming in, they couldn't appreciate it. So similar to your story, you couldn't appreciate it because you didn't do it. Like you weren't there when Procter & Gamble got built.
Right.
So you don't have a reference point or context to truly understand what it takes to build it. Now you may understand how to run something that's mature and like set up and the infrastructure is solid. But part of the problem with us at GoPro, I feel like, was we were on such fire and moving so fast and growing so fast that like you could hardly interview these people to assess culture, let alone like, ensure that they're going to actually have the background to do the work that you need them to do.
Right.
And so I feel like we ended up top heavy because we got a war chest of capital to like post IPO, and we wanted to do entertainment and all these other things. And I think on paper, a lot of it sounded great, but I think there was this almost a sense of like, well, we can just buy our way to it. We got all this money. Let's just buy our way to it. And you see that with a lot of like, investments, look at what SoftBank's been doing.
Right. Right.
It's like they're throwing like billions of dollars around at stuff that are like still kind of like ideas. Like they aren't real, even like legitimate, like sustainable businesses yet. And they're like garnering like hundreds of millions of dollars. Like, so I think there's just a weird sense of like value. Like, so even with the IPO, like, GoPro's evaluation hit like something like $14 billion or something at one point.
Right.
Like 90 something dollar stock price. Like, come on. Like I worked in finance long enough to know that that's crazy.
Right.
Like, so a bunch of people made some money, but when I look at like the structure of it, like the people that made a bunch of money are the people that already had a bunch of money. So there's some strange like nuances to like the world of going public. And I think that unfortunately, when people get rich too, you get a lot of movement, so you get people leaving, you get people moving on, you get people getting new opportunities.
Do you know how many millionaires came out of GoPro at the IPO? Did you guys ever talk about that?
I don't remember the number, but I know at one point on paper it was like a lot. But the problem is on paper, and then like dealing with lockups and like knowing how to play stock markets. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I learned like the hard way, and I'm sure a lot of other people learned the harder way.
Right.
That like didn't get to realize it because they're not savvy enough to.
Right.
So it's just an interesting game. I mean, if you're like customer service, you might have been a millionaire for like a heartbeat, but if you didn't cash out,
Right.
Probably not.
That was me.
You know,
I was in Shirati, Tanzania when I should have sold my stock, man. That's what I should have done. I was painting murals for the first school in Shirati, Tanzania, man. For Be Somebody.
Some expensive murals.
It was an expensive mural, man. I mean, hey, $1 million mural right
beautiful. They were beautiful, though. But yeah, man, I mean, as far as like growth goes, I mean, growth is hard. You know, adding bodies quickly is super hard. I mean, like, I wish we could have slowed down, because I remember at one point, like, I eventually became VP of brand integrity, which was a much harder job than I ever would have imagined, because anybody could be like, hey, is this good for the brand? I'm like, damn, like, it wasn't supposed to cover everything, you know, but yeah, man, I mean, it's just, it became really hard to ensure the culture. And like, I got asked to do all these interviews where it's like, I had one line from the HR department. They're like, see if they're a good cultural fit. Like, how the hell am I going to figure out if you're a good cultural fit in 30 minutes?
Right.
You know, especially talking about jobs like in engineering or like departments that I actually didn't even like know the job, like, or the work or the people well enough to be able to discern whether or not you're going to be a good cultural fit. So it kind of got to this weird place where I think, you know, we lost sight of it and probably could have documented like our why and our purpose and our mission, and sort of helped establish like that North Star for people to hold on to. Because I feel like in business, if you don't establish that North Star, even if it's like so far in the future or whatever, it's like, you got to have a vision. And you got to like give people that inspiration and that motivation to like drive forward to something. Otherwise, it feels like you're just on a hamster wheel.
Right.
And that's going to get old real fast if you don't have like that aspirational element, I feel like. And, you know, there's some people that just want to go punch in, punch out, and that's cool. We need people like that, right? But if you're not being,
I don't want any people like that at my company.
Right?
Hoost, I don't
well,
want.
That wouldn't make sense for your brand, bro.
No, man. I gave like my sermon on Monday. I was like, we are not a 9 to 5. That is not our DNA. We don't clock in and clock out. You got to believe. You got to want to be here. You got to be passionate about it. You got to feel it and live it. You know. And I think that you really appreciate this.
All about that.
Yeah, man, I think you'll appreciate this, Hoost. I always say to our team, our 3 things that we hire for are passion, coachability, and cultural fit. I was like, we can teach everybody everything else, but you got to have that passion, you know, that burning desire and excitement to be here. You got to be moldable and be open to feedback and learning and growing. And you have to be able to live and breathe the culture, or it's not going to work.
Totally, man. 100%. I mean, I think the hard part is there's not enough jobs in the world that offer all of those things.
Right.
I wish it was the case, but I mean, but that said, you can find other outlets. You know, you can find other passions, like, or ways of expressing your passion, and let your job be the means to the end to enjoy that. And that's why it's like, for me, TD Ameritrade was a good experience, because I gained a lot of like actual tangible work experience, even though I didn't love the job. But it allowed me to live my lifestyle still.
Right.
You know, so there's both. I mean, I think that there are a ton of people that want to find a job that they can love, where it ends up not being like work, because you're just like, I love this, and we're going to do what needs to be done whenever it needs to be done, because that's just what it is. I live this thing. And that's an amazing feeling to have. Like, you've had it, obviously, like I've had it with GoPro. Like, I thought I was going to be a GoPro for life, you know, for a while. Like, I was like, this is my jam. This is the brand. Like, I love it here. Like, we're gonna keep crushing. We're gonna keep growing. But then reality sunk in, right? We make cameras, you know, so it's like, awesome. We make killer content. We have a killer community. And, you know, we could argue about what coulda, shoulda, woulda been, but at the end of the day, like, GoPro's an amazing success story. But for me, I wanted to like look at exactly the things you're talking about, like culture. And, you know, passion, and ultimately coachability is an interesting one to think about, because I think about these themes for like humanity.
Right.
You know, so it's like, how can we apply some of these themes to like that bigger picture? And, you know, as I was sort of wrapping up my career at GoPro, it is in part because of that cultural evolution. And it stops being as much about building the community. And part of that was my job was no longer building the community. It was like trying to hold on to this culture at GoPro as it was continuing to move forward. And that and I'm still just even reflecting on it now. Like, I think I've learned that you can't hold on so tightly to the culture, because it's just like it's a living, breathing thing when you start a company, and that company takes life of its own, right? Like, at the end of the day, you can only control it so much, but it becomes a sum of the parts. And that's like your employees, that's your partners, and that's your customer. You know, ultimately, like, it becomes like so much bigger than like the original idea. And I think that's true of most businesses. You know, you may have like a great business plan and a great idea of what you're going to do. I mean, man, you pitched me on Be Somebody.
I did.
But look at where you
Where's
are
that check, brother? Where's that check? I'm so. It must have got lost in the mail. I mean, I'm sure you sent it.
I totally did, man. I don't know. I was expecting my stock certificate.
Hey, let me tell you, you screwed up. You would have got a 10x return, man. So hey, you just put that on the regrets.
I blew it. But we're still talking. So
hey, but Justin, speaking of still talking, man, I know we could talk forever. And the best part of this conversation is that I'm just so pumped to be back in touch with you, man. I love you, bro. I am so inspired by you, but I want you to tell everybody about Kindhumans and the amazing vision you have, and the community that you're building, and everything that you and Suzy and the team are doing at Kindhumans.
Awesome. No, I appreciate it. And, you know, likewise, man, super inspired by all of your work, and just, man, getting out there and helping motivate and inspire people. And, you know, I can only hope to do the same, as we're building out Kindhumans. But part of what we're trying to do, I mean, when I think about why we started Kindhumans, I mean, I was, you know, again, wrapping up my career at GoPro, wanting to focus on the cause. GoPro for a Cause was a program we built there. And the idea was to leverage the platform of GoPro to elevate and market, raise awareness for different nonprofits, and leverage that audience that we had built to help grow those nonprofits and raise a lot of money for them, hopefully. Unfortunately, being a publicly traded company and having some speed bumps in the IPO or post-IPO world, GoPro had to do some layoffs and cutting budgets and things like that. And so, the budget for the Cause program didn't make sense for me anymore. Or for the company to keep me just to run a small budget that was like less than my salary. So, we decided it was best to move on. I stayed on as a consultant, but then I started to really, after a few months of decompression, started to think about what's next. And dating back to when I was a kid, both my parents really kind of try to instill giving back and volunteering and participation in our community. Around holidays, we would do food drives and, food kitchens and things like that sometimes. And so there was always this element of like service and giving back. And I remember thinking, like, in my 20s, and it's weird how things sort of come to be or manifest themselves when you can put your mind to it sometimes. Because in my mid 20s, I'm thinking I want to settle down in my mid 30s. Hopefully by like the time I'm like 40 or so, I'll have financial freedom and the resources to be able to dive into philanthropy. And, I've been volunteering for different nonprofits along the way over the last 20 plus years. Not a ton, because I was working a lot too, but always like trying to keep it into the mix. And as I was starting to do some consulting work for a couple of nonprofits after GoPro, I kept running into this common theme of like, there just not being marketing dollars. And it just kills me that you have all these amazing people doing this amazing work and they're not amplifying it. And it's interesting, right? It's like even the idea of for-profit, nonprofit, like a nonprofit just sounds like poverty.
Right.
Right. It is poverty, right? Tin cup mentality. So, as I'm exploring that world and starting to understand it a little bit better, and I would donate a little money here or there or whatever. And, you know, it's like $5,000 here or 10 grand there, like not tons, but you know, at GoPro, we were producing full videos, like short videos, but like a full little mini film for $5,000 or $10,000.
Right.
And so I started to think, I'm like, well, man, maybe I should just donate a production to create marketing assets for these nonprofits instead of giving them cash that's going to go into administrative stuff and whatever, you know, maybe it's going to help people. That's great. But how can we help them make more money?
Yeah, definitely.
You know, so like a couple examples of GoPro, we would get like, you know, 3 to 4x the cost of the film. So it's like if we spent like 40, you know, high end, it might be like 40 or 50 grand at GoPro on a production, but it might raise $150,000 for the nonprofit. That's a good investment.
Right.
You know, like if you're going to donate money. So I have taken some of that information, and as we, you know, instead of trying to just help nonprofits, I decided that maybe we can build a business that builds in that give back to cause as part of everything that we do.
Right.
And to actually create a for-profit business, we're going to have a nonprofit too, but, but basically create like multiple revenue streams that allow us to constantly flow money towards nonprofits.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so at a high level, I mean, I'd say we're trying to create the intersection of community content, commerce, and cause. So we want to build the biggest community of kind humans possible.
Awesome.
We want to tell stories about kind humans and profile kind humans and the good work that they're doing across business, for individual effort, as well as nonprofit effort, and really highlight the people that we feel are like good role models for society. Because there's not enough of that, right? You have all these amazing athletes, for example, and it's like all about selfies and like how my amazing talent at this thing that I do, right? But like meanwhile, they give to charity, they donate time to kids, they feed homeless, like whatever. Like there's all sorts of great activity happening all the time, but the media is not covering it. Social media doesn't cover it. So really, like, how can we help change the narrative for content? On the commerce side, it's like this marketplace, and this goes to Suzy. This is like her world. But she's been researching, like, since we had kids and started a family, you know, we started researching products, and we had some early allergies with one of our daughters. And as we started to kind of like look under the hood of some of the products that we were consuming, we realized there was a lot of toxic stuff in there. And so that's been a big part of the impetus to just kind of clean up the things that we're putting in and on our body. I mean, you start to go down the rabbit hole, man. It's kind of a scary thing, but you start looking at ingredients, you start looking at sourcing, start understanding more of where things are coming from and how it was made and who it hurts. I mean, you talk about like all the conversation in the news today about like racism and slavery. And I mean, we're still sitting on a system where cheap labor or merely free labor is the linchpin of the whole economic system, and it just gets pushed further and further away from like the people that buy the products. But like all our stuff's made for super cheap, you know? Right? And it's like, do you know where it came from? So anyways, the marketplace is designed to be this like place for the conscious consumer. And we want to have a curated experience where we're trying to streamline that effort in this day and age of like overwhelming information. We want to streamline that effort by curating product and doing the homework for you. Part of the goal is to actually
it's so crazy who's just listening to you talk, man, because there's so many parallels to the early days of Besomebody. You know, of what we were trying to build with all the, you know, because I was like, I learned from you. I was like, I want to build the community first. I want to build it through content. I want to unite people with a common purpose and a shared passion to do good and to help each other and to elevate each other in the world around them. And then introduce the product and potentially a marketplace and licensing and all the things from both a community and cultural standpoint as well as a business standpoint. And I feel proud of the growth that we hit. We hit 10 million people in our community at the peak of our growth. And I'm proud of what we built. And there's still people in the middle of Siberia, literally, with Be Somebody across their chest with a black Be Somebody t-shirt. But we weren't able to... we weren't able to fulfill and actually bring to life some of the business elements. I always feel like maybe we're a couple years too early, but when I see what you're doing,
I think
man,
you were, yeah. Well, I mean, timing is everything, though, right? I mean,
right.
And like the last part. So cause, right? We everything goes to cause, right? 3% of sales to cause. We're not a nonprofit because I want our employees to make it. I want like growth opportunity because at the end of the day, it's not about Suzy and me making more money. Like we want more money to be able to do more good things with it. That's
right.
really where we're
Exactly.
trying to come from with this business, you know? And so we want to work with nonprofits. We want to market those nonprofits and help support them through storytelling and facilitating cool partnerships, like cool collaborations with other brands, with artists, and, you know, other cool elements that we'll be introducing over time. But I'm excited because I think, like, to your point on timing, like one of the I'll go back to the GoPro days. GoPro was the right thing at the right time, and we were fortunate to, I guess, carry the brand forward in the right way. And, you know, but if you didn't have YouTube and Facebook and the explosion of like social media and this need for content 24 hours a day,
right,
GoPro would not be anywhere close to the success that it became. Right. So there were companies before GoPro that were out, right? And maybe they had a better product. Maybe they didn't, whatever. That's all debatable. But I think our approach to marketing combined with the timing, like that moment in time was just ripe for
right.
it.
Yep.
And so going back to 2017, and I'm thinking about what to do, and we're sitting at our new next door neighbors. We were just moving back to San Diego from Half Moon Bay. And we met a bunch of new neighbors. They invited us over for a barbecue. And, you know, the conversation went into like, oh, where are you going to put your kids in school? Mind you, 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. So we're talking like preschool. And so we're like talking about it. Oh, I don't know. You haven't really looked. And you got like 5 families, like easily 4 different opinions on where we should put our kids in school. And like, oh, you should do this Montessori school and da-da-da-da-da-da. It's the best school. And another person's like, oh, this one's the best. And it's like, this is preschool. I feel like Allen Iverson right now. It's like, we're talking about
practice?
Preschool?
Talking preschool?
You know, because it's like, at the end of the day, like, I just hope it's like fun and clean and like that people are cool, you know, like
right.
it's not that serious. Like the kids are playing, you know, like they're not like learning like crazy stuff right now. And so we went home and Suzy was definitely like, I think a bit shell shocked and, you know, we're just talking about it. And it's like, man, I don't know. That was weird. Like, I guess like, I don't really care if our kids like are the best at something or win everything or, you know, or the most athletic. And like, I just hope that they're like kind humans. And meanwhile, my brain like starts turning because I've been trying to come up with a new company name for like this consulting LLC and sort of like the early stages of like this marketplace idea. And I'm like, well, let's come up Kind Humans. That's cool. And I looked it up, kindhumans.com, available.
That's
kindhumans.org, available. And I was
How?
done.
How is that?
I
mean, how is that available? Nothing is available.
I know. Well, I had to pay a little bit for one of them, but it's like nothing, like pennies compared to like for what it is, right? I'm like, that's crazy, but so take it. And then we just started to build and it's evolved a little bit, but at a high level in 2017, the idea was like, can we create this sort of like incubator, kind of almost like an investment fund as one pillar? And then this like marketplace / marketing platform as like the second pillar. And then our foundation as the third pillar. And what's cool is like at that sort of basic structural level, you could see the incubator feeding into the marketplace and us helping to grow it through like agency work to help grow those brands and then having that money flow into the causes. And it's cool because that was like 2017. And I feel like, you know, it's definitely been diving in deeper and deeper and drilling into the details of like how we actually bring this to life. But we're staying on like a general like path. like towards that kind of big picture look. But, right now our main focus is on the shop. We're really trying to like expand our product lineup and, curating more products and trying to expand that to, just offer customers a variety of things and especially in categories you may not have thought of to be more sustainable. It's like, we have a speaker company called Listen, and they're making cool speakers and just trying to do things in a more sustainable way. And sometimes it's packaging, sometimes it's like material, sometimes it's the fair trade.
So Hoost, are you guys taking a cut if they're on the marketplace?
No. So right now it's like, so this is the vision, right? The vision is you get into the full marketplace and they're like, we're just the service platform. But, right now we're just partnering up and we're reselling their products. We're trying to feature them and tell their stories and really create like a bit of a ecosystem and a narrative, to draw the customer into this like world of conscious consumption. And we don't plan to be like an Amazon of everything good or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
Cause I think there's fatigue that comes with like having too many choices. And it's like, I don't know, like what are the best green products or eco-friendly products and so on and so forth. Like, so our hope is that we're able to offer that through a curated experience, but then over time, you can imagine that this could develop where it's just like this ecosystem of brands and similar to like a B Corp, right? Where you adhere to a certain set of standards, and we have the Kindhumans credo, and we have like 2 pages of standards that's on, our website. And I mean, there's a lot of products that, we would have liked to have carried, that are even popular brands, but it's like, oh, sorry, your standards aren't quite there yet. So it's kind of an awkward situation, but in the end, like we want to like take the approach of leading by example. And so, and also like, it's not about us. Like when I think of Kindhumans as a brand, it's about the people out there that they're the Kindhumans. Like I don't want to project this like idea that we think we're the Kindhumans and we're like holier than thou, because that's 100%
you are definitely not a kind human, man. You, after the hazing and boot camp that you put me through at GoPro, I mean, you are an evil, you are a bad human.
Yeah,
you're a mean human.
I'm trying to repent for my sins.
Exactly.
So it's just this idea of like being mindful of the things that we do and being kind to yourself. And that's like with the stuff that you consume. And that's content too, man. I mean, it's not just like the hard goods and the food we eat. It's like the content that we consume on the daily.
Yeah, great point.
Especially these days is a massive issue. I mean, I think it's like I love what you guys put out because it is about like inspiring and motivating and trying to get people to do something like tangible and real. And unfortunately, so much of social media is driven by this superfluous stuff. It's just like, check me out doing this stupid human trick.
Right.
Adds no value to anything, and it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. And so, even as we explore social media and like, how do we want to play in social media? I'm sure you go through this too, right? Like, what's the voice? Like, what's the message? And like, how do you get virality when the things that seem to go viral are kind of crap?
Right.
It's like, it's hard to find those nuggets of like truth and like just powerful content that's like going to engage you. And it's just so fragmented. So our hope is to build more of a hub where people can come together as a community that can collaborate and communicate with each other. And you just kind of know when you come through the door into the world of Kindhumans that like the intentions are good here, and the brands are here for a good reason. And we definitely don't try to seek perfection. I try to use the term with our team a lot, like humans are at best perfectly imperfect. We all have our flaws. But that's part of the beauty. Like that's part of like our humanity is that we are flawed, and, having empathy and compassion for those flaws is an important part of like how we grow and how we like support each other in community. And I've been just super impressed by the fact that there is this whole group of people in the world that are just trying to make things happen for the better good, and like people that don't need money. I pride myself in Suzy because like, we don't need to do this. I definitely don't want the fame, for more fortune or notoriety for this, but like I believe in my soul that like we can help shift the narrative towards a more positive narrative. And there's a lot of other people in the world that are trying to do the same. So it's like, man, so similar to your vision, I think, at the end of the day. And like, how do we collaborate, Kash? You know, like that's where I come from too. It's like, there's a bunch of us that want to do cool shit and make noise and like try to make the world better and make like empower people to be better and to help others and not just be selfish, you know?
Everything that you're talking about, from the events to the content to the marketplace to the potential app to the apparel. I mean, this is like the original Be Somebody ethos of how do we build it, and it was all driven of doing something good, you know, something bigger than yourself, knowing that we all want to be a part of something bigger than ourselves. That's the most basic part of the human condition, you know, to be a part of something bigger than you.
The challenge is, I totally 100%. I mean, I think the challenge, like honestly, it's a war of marketing.
Right.
I think that it's a constant battle for the attention of people. And unfortunately, greed wins. I call it like the spectrum of selfishness. And on one side, you have greed. On the other side, you have kindness. Because if you think about kindness, like how does it make you feel when you do something kind for someone?
Right.
It makes you feel good.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
That's a good kind of selfish behavior. You know, so like but I think like greed wins because greed is hungrier than like that altruistic behavior sometimes. And so even as we're like progressing our brand and business forward, like I try to impress on my team, like we've got to be greedy for good, like greedy for the better good. Like we've got to play the game like the other players are playing the game. You know what I mean? Like, let's hustle. Let's build a business. Like we can give back and like do great things for people, but like, let's be a real business. Let's make real money. And let's make some real noise. Like, let's not be like Tin Cup, like, hey, can you guys help us out? You know, like, no, let's like try to be disruptive.
What is the business model?
Well, I mean, the foundation of revenue is definitely steeped in the marketplace. You know, I think that's like our foundational element. But I mean, top of the funnel growth, you know, it's really focusing on like building community right now, raising awareness, trying to get the brand out there. And in the meantime, doing good things for other people by supporting them through content efforts, marketing efforts, donations to nonprofits. And then, you know, working on software development and things in the background. But like the vision is like a 10 to 20 year vision, and it's got all sorts of crazy components and, you know, things that we want to add over time. But right now, I mean, our main focus is really on community content and the marketplace.
And how many people do you have
really,
on the squad now, Hoost?
Well, we've got a mix of like some full-time people as well as, you know, some contractors and part-time, you know, people helping us out. But I mean, there's at least, I'd say like a dozen people kind of actively helping us grow this thing right now. But there are more. Awesome. I mean, we have like advisors and, you know, just friends of the brand that want to help where they can. We have other brand partners jumping out and like say, hey, like, can we do a deal where like we just slap your brand on our stuff and we'll give you a check for some of the proceeds, you know, like give to charity. I was like, okay, sweet. You know, like, let's do this. And actually, you know, a special thing happened a few weeks ago where we did, or I guess it was almost a month, but we did the paddle out for unity, and we helped basically Kindhumans got together with a couple nonprofits. One was Changing Tides Foundation. And then there's a group called Textured Waves, which is about getting more diversity into surfing, focused on like women of color in particular. And really cool group. I mean, so Textured Waves, Changing Tides, they were all about women empowerment. But they're also like really deep into like grassroots, you know, cause efforts. And so I got a call on like a Sunday afternoon, and it was like, hey, you know, it's like, this is when all the protests after George Floyd's murder happened. And, the protests are happening and there's like rioting and it's like crazy, right? And super emotional time, being a multiracial man, a black man, like in this country at this time has definitely been a hardcore experience, and it's made me reflect on my race and our culture in ways that I haven't ever in my entire 45 years. But that said, so I get this call on Sunday, like, hey, let's do a paddle out for solidarity with Black Lives Matters, and like see if we can get a few hundred people, and we'll do a paddle out, which is just a classic thing in the surf community when somebody passes away. Typically that's when we do it. Sometimes when it's like opening an event and things like that, you do the paddle out and everybody gets into a big circle, and sometimes you hold hands. A lot of times you're taking flowers and stuff to throw up into the air and just create like this magical moment. People are splashing and hooting, and it's a beautiful moment. And so we decided that we would, rather than do like a protest in the streets, we're like, let's get people together, speak to the issue, and then do a paddle out. Figured it was also a way to kind of diffuse the energy,
right.
For like potential riot and whatnot. And it was nerve wracking. There's like an Antifa note comes through, like, oh, Antifa troublemakers are on their way to Moonlight Beach to mess with the Paddle for Unity. So lots of anxiety, but anyways, we ended up doing this event with these people. A few of us got up and spoke to a crowd, and what we thought was going to be a few hundred turned into a few thousand. I mean, I think it was like, they estimated like about 4,000 or 5,000 people were there.
Wow.
And crazy. And so this was literally like idea on Sunday and pushed it out on like Monday evening to put the word out to people. And by Wednesday, when we did the event, we had like close to 5,000 people. Crazy.
That's amazing.
It was awesome. And we had amazing like coverage, Reuters and CBS, Fox, like all these news stations came out, and like there's this stunning images, like aerial shots with drones of like
I
unity
saw those
that we wrote in the sand with the surfboards, right?
Yeah.
And then we had like 1,000 or more people like on surfboards out in the water past the break all together, like shouting like, no justice, no peace, and Black Lives Matters, and just hooting and splashing. And I mean, it was mind blowing, like how crazy that experience was. But what's been really cool since then is that the community of action sports, kind of surf community, has rallied to want to do a raffle to raise money to the causes, to support Black Lives Matter causes. And so we've gotten stuff from all over, Southern California, like other parts of the country. We've had people donate like vacation rentals and hotel stays and, beautiful photos from that day in the water, and they want us to host it.
That's awesome.
And they're just like, dude, what can we do? Like, and so we're going to host this raffle, I think in a week, and see how much money we can raise. And we got some amazing stuff that people are going to be super fired up to get. I think it's going to be awesome. But it's just special, man. It's humbling. Like the fact that like so many people want to throw down and that they're looking to us to be that platform. And ultimately, when I think about the business, man, I mean, I don't know. It's tough. Like, I think we're trying to identify revenue streams to sustain ourselves. And I think the store is a great opportunity that could be a multi-million-dollar business. I think it could be hundreds of millions of dollar business potentially, right? Like, I think it's a real opportunity. But that said, I think Kindhumans is a very interesting brand because similar to like Besomebody, right? Like, what is it? It means something. It invokes a feeling when you come across that brand. And but at the end of the day, you don't necessarily have to know exactly what it is to kind of know what it is. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're going to get a sense of Kindhumans.
I used to always say that Besomebody is abstract but intuitive and instantly personal.
Yep.
Because, it can be whatever you want to whoever you are. And and that's the power of it. That's the beauty of it.
Right. Well, it invokes a feeling in yourself, right? Like you may say like, well, I need to be somebody, or you might be, I am somebody, whatever. It's going to cause a reaction.
Right.
And that's good. It's going to make you think. And I think for Kindhumans, it's like intentionally deliberate. Like, that's it. That's the simple line. Like, all kind humans welcome.
Right.
You know, but as I think about big picture, I mean, I think that this has the potential to be like an umbrella brand. And I think it has the opportunity to create a bunch of different revenue streams kind of under the umbrella of Kind Humans. And so we're exploring some like B2B stuff. I mean, it is so funny, Kash. Like the parallels are like uncanny, really. And
Right.
I do think like the timing issue for you was timing. Like I think that maybe brand is part of it, but I think that like timing, like it is so ripe right now. And
Right.
3 years ago, I thought like I could see like back to the GoPro days. I'm like, man, this feels like it's like similar in the sense that there are a bunch of conditions forming
Right.
that make a brand like Kind Humans make sense.
Yeah.
So as people are becoming more aware of like their products and where they came from and things like B Corp, 1% for the planet, like fair trade, like those are becoming more and more prevalent, and younger generations are all about it, right? They want purpose-driven companies like products. They don't want their parents' products that didn't care about like profit at all costs.
Right.
You know, so I think that mentality is shifting, and I think that, you know, hopefully the goal is to be sort of at the forefront of that movement. But it's multifaceted, man. I mean, I think the multimedia company, social media, there's some, I think, huge opportunities in that space to help shift the narrative away from those big conglomerates. Cause I think like they're all subscribed to the same program, business structure where content is based off of like advertising,
Right.
not the objective or like quality of the content itself quite often.
Yep. No, man. Well, I totally agree. And I think, you know, when you think about the perfect time, everything happening in the world culturally with the pandemic, in politics, the need and the longing for Kind Humans and the ethos of Kind Humans has really never been more relevant, never been more needed. And I totally agree. And people used to ask me all the time, oh, what's a business model of Besomebody and how are you going to make money? And I was always like, man, you're asking the wrong questions. Like we're trying to make impact and the money,
Right.
and money is a symptom, not a purpose. We'll figure that part out. But if we can just really connect with people, you know,
That's it.
right.
And then you can do the things you want to do. Like that's like, for me, it's like there's three components to life really at a basic level. And if there's like survival mode, and then there's living, and then there's thriving. And it's like our hope with Kind Humans is that we can help shift things and be a part of that conversation of like shifting more people out of survival mode and into and through living mode into thriving mode, you know, where it's like you're able to be a master of your own destiny, and like you're able to follow the path that you want to follow and to like participate in a way that, you know, is a bit freer. And I feel like so many people are desperate just to survive, and that blinds their truths, you know, and they're not able to follow their heart and their, you know, where they want to go. And I commend you for that. And I think we're following a similar path where we believe in the mission of trying to help people do better. So we say it's like making it easier to do good, you know, and like really want to keep that positive narrative. We'll address issues, you know, you got to dig in and not be afraid to address the uncomfortable issues, but we still want to focus on positivity and solutions and like, let's fix it. Let's like do it better. Let's not like wallow in the mire.
Right.
Know? So let's be somebody, you know?
Yes.
100%, man. Like, I don't want to go just sit on my ass. Like, dude, I could be retired and like sitting on my ass right now. Like, I could be like chilling on the beach.
Right. You could.
Not really having much of a care in the world. But man, I talk about regret. I would regret that. Like,
Right.
I would regret having these thoughts and ideas and feeling like we can add value.
That's a perfect way just to kind of wrap up Hoost, because I think that when I look at not just the GoPro story, which we talked about a lot, when I look at the Justin Wilkenfeld story of, you know, someone that worked his ass off and put in the time and the work and the blood, sweat, and tears and drove the trucks and built the furniture and did everything and did it the right way through real conversations with real people and real communities and authentically and passionately, was able to achieve success in a big way when GoPro IPO'd. And that was just the beginning of the thriving for you, because you decided thriving for you was, now that I have some financial stability, I want to go do something great for the world through this movement and platform that myself and my wife and people I care about can build together. And that is so freaking cool, man. That's so awesome, because like, you know, people don't realize a lot of times they see you at the end of the cycle. They see you at the top of the mountain. They don't realize how far you've climbed up and everything that you sacrificed and went through. And I really respect that, man. And I 100% want to figure out how we can partner and be somebody in Kindhumans. It's destiny, bro. It's meant to be. So we got to figure out how we do it, man.
I feel you. Yeah. No, I mean, dude, that's one team, one dream idea, you know, and it's like, I want to connect the dots, man, just like you do. I mean, I think like what you guys have built, we'll definitely have some follow-up conversations, because I think that the whole education and like information, inspiration, and just helping provide people a toolkit to help them live a better life. And ultimately for Kindhumans, it's like, we want to provide toolkits for people to live a better life, to help create a better world, you know, and like to, you know, create that place where people can find those things. Cause man, there's so much cool stuff happening in the world, and so many innovations and cool things that like just don't get time of day, like on like, it's like the news should be covering that stuff. Cause it's like, that's what I want my kids to see. You know, I want my kids to be fired up to like learn and like go do something and go be somebody, right? Like I seriously do. Like I'm like, you know, terrified of what like the majority of like our culture has become from like TV shows and social media and like all the toys, and it's just like driving this like consumption culture that's like, for what? You know, like there's so much more to life than just consuming mindlessly. So our hope is to just, you know, help nudge that along. And yeah, man, I want to partner with you all day long. So let's do it.
Awesome, man. Well, I can't wait to reconnect on the next steps. Herbie, please put that meeting on the calendar. We got to go. We're going to go out to, we're going to go to Northern California, meet with Hoost. He's going to take us surfing. I'm finally going to put on a wetsuit. It's going to be cold. And it's gonna happen, man. But
let's do it.
But Hoost, man, thank you so much.
And we're gonna film it on a GoPro, Cash.
A Hero 3, please.
Classic Hero 3 GoPro, man. Back in the old days, pour out some liquor for the Hero 3. But Hoost, thank you so much, man, for taking so much of your time and sharing so much of your wisdom and inspiration with us and everybody who's listening, man. I really appreciate it, and all the best to you, Suzy, and the team at Kindhumans, man.
Oh man, well, likewise, my friend. It's a pleasure always. We got to do this more often, and no, thank you so much for having me on, and it's a pleasure. Take care of yourself.
Thanks, brother. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, bro.
Thanks,
bro.
Cheers.
Herbie, that might have been the longest conversation we've had.
It was, absolutely.
And the crazy part is we could have kept going. I remember when Andrea Diquez was on the show, we said that we could have kept talking for hours and hours, which is true. I think we could have talked to Justin for weeks, bro.
Easily.
I mean, it would have been weeks. We would have been changing clothes in here. I would have been showering in the back. I mean, it was going to be a long conversation because there's just so much depth to get into in his story, in the GoPro story, in Justin and my connection, what we learned together on the front lines at GoPro to what he's doing now. Just so much, man.
Yeah, it was so insightful just to hear. And we finally got the Kash Shaikh story we've been waiting for.
Which one? What was it?
I think the hazing one, it may be the beginning.
No, we didn't even get into all the details of the hazing, which I'll have to save for a later episode. Maybe our 10th anniversary episode, Herbie. We're going to get into it.
We'll bring Justin back on.
Justin back on. We'll bring Nick back on, too. We'll bring Nick. We'll bring Sean White on. We'll bring everyone. Be a party.
GoPro reunion.
Yes. We've had enough Procter & Gamble reunions. We might as well go with the GoPro reunion.
Moving on.
Yep.
Awesome, Kash. Well, I mean, from the amazing conversation we had with Justin today, what was your one big thing?
Honestly, Herbie, what I thought about the most when I was talking with Justin was how much and how badly I screwed up when I went to that company. Because like we talked about on the show, I was at the height of my career at Procter & Gamble. Honestly, had just won Marketer of the Year from the Tide brand, and was getting industry accolades and getting recognition, and was getting the opportunity to get promoted and move across the company. And I just felt like I was the man. I felt like I know what I'm doing. I had just turned 32 at the time. And I walked into GoPro looking around like, man, I know more than these folks here. I got more experience. At that time, I just spent 3 years traveling the world doing brand building. I had seen the world. I felt cultured. I felt like I had all the elements to come in and really drive that company to growth. And every measure of success that I had was the complete wrong scorecard. All the ways that I had been brought up, everything that I learned was not the script that I needed to be reading off. It wasn't the book that was necessary to be followed. At a company like that, a startup that grew grassroots with friends and family, that grew door to door, store to store, community to community, And I made so many mistakes in terms of mindset, in terms of work ethic, in terms of awareness, in terms of respect for people who had been there before, in terms of really understanding the grind. I had no idea what the grind meant. I mean, honestly, at a big company, you work your ass off, but you don't grind. You don't get your hands as dirty as they need to be to build something from scratch. It's a whole different beast. And because I didn't know that, I rubbed people the wrong way. And I inadvertently came off in a way that I didn't mean to come off. Because to be honest, I really did love it there. I really did believe in what they were doing. I really wanted to be accepted. I wanted people to like me. I wanted to be one of the core members of the team. And I think the folks over there felt that from my heart, but my exterior and my actions didn't really speak to that. And it wasn't until I left GoPro and started to build on my own with Besomebody that I really started to realize all the mistakes that I made, and started to realize, man, now I understand why when I left at 5 p.m. and everybody was grinding, they looked at me differently. Now I understand when I used to come to the events and not roll up my sleeves and get my hands dirty and start setting stuff up or making sure the audio was working and things like that. They looked at me and rolled their eyes. Now I understand when I used to be the guy on TV being interviewed in front of the media and getting the publicity, but not really having the history and heritage with the brand and the company, why people got frustrated. You know what I mean? So I took all that. And when I realized it, my first phone call was to Justin to be like, and he told you about it. I was like, man, I'm sorry. I screwed up. But I took that to heart, and I told myself, now I'm going to do it differently. I'm going to be respectful of the process. I'm going to be grateful for the grind. And I'm always going to honor the people that have been there from the beginning. Tenure matters. If you are on the front lines, if you're on the battlefield in the early days and you push your way through, I'm never going to forget that, and we're going to be in it together. And that has become such a driving force and such a pivotal part of what we're building at Besomebody and BSB Group International, man. And it all came from me making mistakes and really failing at GoPro. And to me, the biggest lesson is you can completely screw something up. Like, you can be totally off base and still turn that into a win if you're humble enough and aware enough to acknowledge where you messed up. If I kept denying the fact that I did something wrong at GoPro, I wouldn't be where I was today. We wouldn't be here, but it was because I embraced it and I learned from it and I made it a part of my story and my journey that we got to be on a path of growth ourselves. And it's why we respect the people that have done things before even more, and why we respect the team that we're building that's a part of this from the early days.
Man, I love that, Kash. Thank you so much.
Thanks, man.
Thank you for listening to the Be Somebody podcast. Be sure to check out all of our audio and video episodes on besomebody.com or listen and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get yours. We out.
You.